Hello, welcome everybody to this webinar, Unlocking the Art of Street Photography, Insider Techniques. I am Ross Grieve, and thanks for joining me. So this is about an hour-long episode, and the next 60 minutes, I'm going to take you through how I look at my street photography to the point of these people around the world and stuff, and how I actually achieve the images, get the images, my thought process behind the images, right through to the result. I'll actually show you how I take those images and my editing techniques, as in how I edit them. It won't be like a full-on edit, but I'll tell you what I've done to do that. So ask questions all the way through. There'll be a nice Q&A at the end as well. And keep your eye out at the end. There will be a discount code put in for Park Cameras and Calibrite. And also keep your eye out for the next video we're going to play. There'll be, I'm just going to show you a little snippet of it, and there will be a link to YouTube in that, because it does go on for about 7 minutes, but it is a really good reference point for you guys. And my good friend Matt Jacobs and I made this a few years ago. So buckle up, grab yourself whatever you need to keep yourself refreshed, and let's enjoy the ride for the next 60 minutes. She's a slow start this, but it's worth it when it starts. So this will take you through my thought process on my street photography, and you'll be able to go through and look at it, stop it, go back to it. So you'll find that later towards the end, Street, a portrait of an artist, on my YouTube channel. So you'll be able to check that out later. It just gets a bit sticky because of the good old bandwidth we have here. So when I shoot my street photography, what is in the bag? I always say, if you can keep it small, because that's a big bonus for you guys. I shoot on Lumix cameras because I like them. And what do I tend to use? There's a variety of things. I'm going to sort of show you what to use and what not to use. I know a lot of people will tell you what to use, but I'm going to also tell you what not to use as well. So what not to use? Don't go out with a massive lens like this. Think of yourself, you're carrying around valuables with you at the end of the day. You don't want to go out with a massive lens, a 200mm lens, or a full frame body. Some people want to do that. When I say full frame body, a large body. Go out with something that makes you look like a tourist. Now, I've got an accent, it's Kiwi accent, even though I've been over here for 20 odd years, but I get away and I can go into tourist mode. And if you can do that, you will get away with everything, and you'll be able to access a lot of areas as well, because wandering around the small cameras, and the sensors these days are so good on cameras, it allows you to sort of explore places that you wouldn't probably get into if you were shooting on such a large camera, so to speak. So I'll use I've got micro four thirds cameras, full frame cameras, 15mm, because I like to shoot on prime, or 35mm if you want to shoot full frame. You can get smaller cameras that are full frame, because my legs become the zoom, and that's the key thing. Just walk around. You improve your composition when you're using primes like that as well, and plus they're smaller, so that's great as well. I carry with me my iPhone, because for editing we'll go into that as well. We're going to talk about model releases briefly, what I use when I'm shooting out, if I need to get a photograph of things, because that's a big thing people have when they photograph people on the street. What do they do if they want to use it, and how can they use it? Always carry your imagination with you as well. That's always a good start. And don't limit yourself to imagination, but just be courteous. Be comfy, very comfy. And I noticed a typo there, so thank you for everyone who's going to point that out to me. But most of all, don't look like a photographer when you're out there. Look like someone who's enjoying themselves, and your imagery will shine through in that way as well. So where do we go next? Let's get into it. We're going to talk about shutters very, very quickly. So when you're shooting with shutters these days, you've got the option. You've got a rolling shutter or you've got a mechanical shutter. The traditional shutter will open and shut, but which is like a total shutter. A rolling shutter is an electronic shutter. On mirrorless cameras can have this mode. So you have to be aware of that when you're working in street lights and that. Otherwise, you can get a rolling shutter or banding going down it. If you shoot around 1/100th of a second or lower, you should be fine. Your naked eye won't pick it up, but you'll soon get used to it. And that's just adapting when you're out in the street. So that's worth noting and writing that down. Just be wary of your shutter speeds. I shoot fully manual when I'm out and about. I'm always twisting and changing my settings, but I will try and shoot around 100th of a second, and you'll know why, and a lot lower at some point as well. Now, I put this image in, and I put it in for a reason, just to get your mindset going. So one of the places I love photographing is in airports. This is San Francisco Airport. I was on the way back from New Zealand, and to me, this is an incredibly boring photo. There's nothing going on. There's shards of light. There's a few leading lines, but there's nothing really going on point of interest. There's two silhouette people, which is great. They're unidentifiable. And remember that they're unidentifiable. So I could use that, but it doesn't really do anything for me. It doesn't excite me. It hasn't got a point of impact. So how do we create a point of impact that's really going to lift an image, show off your style and everything you're about? This is my signature technique, which I use, and it's helped me win UK Street Photographer twice. So it must be doing something all right. So it's called dragging the shutter. People, what's dragging the shutter mean? It's just a slow shutter speed. That's all it is. It's dragging that shutter so it's slow. You're getting a nice exposure going on, and that's what's happening. So you're dragging the shutter. And I'll give you some key examples on how to exploit that as well. So you'll find your subject. Everything is handheld with my street photography. I don't walk around with a tripod or a monopod. Remember, you don't want to look like a photographer. So this was shot in Osaka. It's called Homeless in Osaka. And I had just arrived in Japan, the first night in Japan, wandering around. It just rained. And the bridge, which I can't remember off the top of my head, and there was this homeless man on the other side of the bridge. So the rain made it look even more dramatic. And I just wanted to get that gap because everyone was rushing home from work. It was about 5:30 in the evening. It's winter months as well, so it's dark. 1/5 of a second, couldn't tell you off the top of my head what my aperture was, but I wanted to get some depth into it. I wanted to get that separation between the people walking past and the subject. So it took me about 5 shots. I knew what I wanted to achieve, and what I wanted to achieve is get just a gap in between the people rushing by and the subject at the other end. So they would kind of frame him. Now, all I did after this, I don't spend a lot of time in Lightroom, which is where I process my images. If I'm processing competition images after that, then I will go and do like some fine retouches in Photoshop. But everything is done in Lightroom, which I apply my own presets, which I've built up over the years, from black and whites to cinema to color presets, desaturated presets. So that was done and out. And all that's done with this, which I'll go through in detail on other pictures as we go on, there's 2 grads pulled in on the side, gradients pulled in on the side, and in the top and in the bottom, and that just accentuates the focus on the subject there. And I've also pumped up the clarity a little bit. Be very careful with your clarity, because that can make or break a photo. But the key thing about a photo, the photo is always there. All you have to do is see it, and you'll get it. And if we go out and we photograph the same thing, we will all have a different result. And that is the beauty of photography. So still think, we're still dragging that shutter to get that effect, to get that uniformity, and also to get that interest in the photo. How do we make that interest? So we go on to our next photo. So this is Harrods, and this was a concept I had come up with at one Christmas, and I wanted to shoot the contrasts of Christmas. So this is Christmas time outside Harrods. Everyone's happy, rushing by, and it's your quintessential British photo of a Harrods doorman. Really nice guy. Went up to him and asked if I could take his photo because he's standing there and I wanted to pose. So there is an element of control in that, but I also wanted to drag the shutter. So remember the photos you're looking at now, the shutter is dragging in the foreground. So that's your front layer. The subject is in the background, in the back layer. So just think of two pieces of paper, you've cut out the middle one, and that's your subject at the back. He was happy and always said, don't move. Another point to watch for as well, when you are photographing with glass or mirrors, try and make sure you're not in the reflection. I try really, really hard not to be in the reflection because it just adds another element of mystery. And I always look at photos that have got reflection. If I can see the photographer, or if I'm watching something on TV, I'm looking at reflections. Oh, can I see the sound guy? Can I see the cameraman? Because I think that's just another level that you care about your work so much. You want to get that element of perfection in. So this image did very well for me as well, and it's just that simple. 1/5 of a second. It seems to be the magic one for me, and I drag that shutter and I get that result. I'll probably crank it up to about f16 because obviously with a slower shutter, I'm letting more light in. So I need to counter that by cranking my aperture up. Again, it's all handheld, but it comes down to just years of practice, practice, and practice. Now, when you've got the subject in front, we were actually out filming one day. So I was just testing something and I got my partner to say, look, stand on the island there. And this was shot in Cardiff. And I just wanted to try, I could see this bus coming along, what it would look like. So rather than having the drag and shutter in front of the subject, it's behind, and it's really, really cool. So my challenge now is to get a dress that's long and flowing on an island. Have to be very careful though, because I don't want it too close that a dress is going to, or hair for that matter, is going to get caught in a wheel or anything like that. So there has to be control, and there has to be some people in there to assist that, and there has to be more distance. So when you're out and shooting in public places and creating images with movement and stuff, you've got to be fully aware of your surroundings. And when you go into like malls and stuff like that, remember you're going into private places. So this is like one of the arcades in Cardiff, and that's so cool that they've got such amazing light running through, and you can just stand back and get that vintage sort of look to it as well. And I love how people have walked through this almost like alien-like legs, and the guy standing in the doorway, what if he wants to buy something or just to walk on. And that's a good thing about street photography. You just observe people's lives. And there is some point when you do interact with them, excuse me, but when you want to just create that natural piece when there's no interaction, this is some of the magic that you can achieve. So do I print my work? Yes, I do. And when you print your work and you see it come off the printer, or it looks amazing. I mean, I'm looking at monitors here, which are all calibrated and everything, and we're going to touch on that later as well. But when you see your work printed, which helps through proper calibration, it is absolutely beautiful. Holding something that you've produced is absolutely magic. And this is actually a completely controlled image. I do get my partner to stand or walk through images sometime. This is only the second image you've seen, which she's in. But I'm in changing the artwork that's on the wall. Now, some people may question, you're using someone else's artwork. How does that figure with copyright? Well, I've changed that image by incorporating someone into it. So I've made that image my own. Now, out of courtesy, I would try and find the artist that had done this graffiti, and I'd tag them in my social media so they can share it. If they wanted a copy of the image, yes, I would obviously donate that to them. So that's the way I work, and that's just courtesy, and I think that should be done. So you're sort of getting the feel of how dragging your shutter can work through so many different scenarios, from being in undergrounds, through train stations, outside shops and stuff. It just works. And the more you use it and the more you practice, the more you will develop your own style. And that's incredibly important. So where do I gather my inspiration from? Where do I get that from? Well, I get my inspiration from movies, and one of the key places I get it from is Joker. And I've sort of started to introduce this green or blues that cinema tends to use these days. And Joker, if you haven't seen it, it's an amazing movie. Don't watch it with kids, but it's an amazing movie. It's very cleverly filmed, and how they use color to control temperature and mood. And you can use that on your street photography, because I've done that. So you've got Joaquin Phoenix, chilling performance. But what I'd like you to watch when you get the chance and you pop over to YouTube, go and watch this film with Lawrence Sher, the director of photography for it, and just Google it and Joker. And he talks about how they use color. Now, how has that influenced my work? So you've seen how they used it. So I've started shooting some really moody things, and I thought, right, I love film, I love my movies, I want to incorporate this into it. So I've created my own preset, a cinema preset. And this is the look I get. So I'm always looking at ways that I can change how I shoot and the style how I shoot, because when you do, it's just so easy to interpret different ways, and it makes you think about your work. If you think about your work and how you present your work and how you're going to shoot your work, you're going to improve your work. So as I say, you're only as good as your last photograph. So there's a lot of green added to this as well, and I like the cinema look. You know, previously I would have just gone black and white like this, but I think when you look at the cinema look, I think it's much more striking, it's much more interesting, and it makes you stop more and look at it and think that could be a screen or a frame shot from a film. So likewise, when I started shooting, this is all shot around Romford. It was a very, very random shoot. And so I've got a black and white on the left, but if I add someone to it walking through and a little bit of my cinema preset, and I can adjust that as well, that's what happens. You get this lovely tone walking through, and you get this sort of grungy, dirty look, which just really suits my style of street photography. Everyone's style of street photography is completely different. You know, a good reference point is also worth looking at is Sean Tucker. He's an amazing street photographer. You know, you could look at it, but get inspiration from different people. Try some techniques out, and you will see your own style develop. I keep talking about your own style because it's pointless copying someone. And there's a big difference copying someone to getting inspiration from someone, because when you copy someone, you don't learn anything. When you get inspiration, you learn a lot, and you go out and you put that to the test, and then you start seeing the results because of inspiration. And that's really, really key. So when I'm out there and about, what do I use as tools of the trade? As in, when I'm out, I'm on the street, I'm photographing, and all I use is my mobile phone, which has got Lightroom Mobile and it's got Photoshop Mobile on it. Now, the beauty about Lightroom Mobile is it'll sync with Lightroom CC. And so I can go and shoot on I can upload raw images into my iPhone, as you can see here. And I will also drink a lot of coffee at that point, because you need to keep your nutrition levels up when you're shooting street photography. Some people laugh and I go, oh yeah, I go out and eat a lot of coffee and cake. You walk that off. You need to keep your sugar levels up. But I digress. So going back to editing. So this is a brief look at what looks like editing. It's so simple to use. I can Wi-Fi connect to my camera. I can download photos straight into my phone, raw if I want, and then I can just edit them. That'll upload to the cloud while I'm walking around. And then when I get back and I look at my desktop, that'll already be synced. Or I'll back up all the images when I get back as well to my desktop, to my Mac, so I can go through everything and do a proper edit as I would normally. But this sort of gives you a bit of a preview. So if you're not happy with how it looks, you can go out and shoot it, because there's nothing worse. And I've done this before. You go out, you shoot your work, and you get back, you look at what you've taken, and you're not happy with the edit. And even though I spend a very little time on the edit, because I try and get it right in camera. If you go out and do that, you'll nail it. So when we're walking around, it doesn't always have to have people in it. It can have, well, it can have whatever you like in it if you like. It can have wall art, it can be so many different things. It can be graffiti. It can be something on the floor, for example, even though that's more wall art I'm talking about is actually something you're going to hang on the wall. Street photography is very, very desirable to buy. So, and I'm lucky enough to have, because I've been shooting it for a while, I'm lucky enough to have some collectors now, and want to hang my stuff on the wall. And I find that an incredible privilege and such a buzz. But when you're going out and about, start thinking about how things look. How would that look on a wall? Because you want to show off something that might jump in on someone's wall, and that could be a bit of cash towards something. And when you get paid and actually selling your work, and this is where we will touch on model releases and stuff. When you get something to buy your work, that's a real buzz. So wall art for me is a really good practice ground because you can go out, you don't have to involve people in it, and it's quite visual as well. So this was shot around Brick Lane. If you want to know any of my locations ago, I can tell you that's no problem at all. The bike was already chained there, and the bike makes it. I don't think the hedgehog is there anymore because the scenery, if you're around Brick Lane, changes all the time. I love the road, how it's all broken up and cobbled underneath the asphalt. That just makes the textures for me there as well. So there's lots of things to think about and looking. And when you're looking through that eyepiece as well, run your eye around all four corners, because what a lot of people do when they go out, they'll look at the center of the sensor or the center through the eyepiece, and they won't check. So if you get your composition nailed, your quality of imagery will absolutely go up another level as well. So there's all little things that are going to help you with your imagery, which will be amazing. So now we get someone involved in a picture. And I love that sort of story on this. The idols sort of, 2021 didn't happen because of lockdowns. And we've got a gentleman sort of shuffling past that to a quite active band. Now, if I wanted to use his image, I would have to get him to sign a model release. If I wanted to use it commercially, if I was using it in editorial sense, then I wouldn't have to get a model release because it'd be telling a story. It's the way it works in the UK. I use two apps for model releases. One is called Image Release and one is called Easy Release. You have to pay for them. I'm not sponsored by them or anything. I just use them and I find them very easy to use. They can sign on the screen. The model you're taking a photo of, get a copy. You'll get a copy emailed to you, and happy days. So for every situation, you could use it. So now the next image after this is got a couple of words which may offend some people, but it's not meant to. It's about the Netflix film series Sex Education. So I'm going to talk you through how this was shot, and this again was shot near Brick Lane. This I apply a desaturation filter to it. As you know, I dragged the shutter, but this was 1/15th of a second this time. So not 1/5, 1/15. This was in daylight. Obviously, the one in Osaka was at nighttime, so I needed a bit more light to go in. Deliberately used a billboard. And the reason for that was for social media, because I wanted to tag Netflix in it. And thought, right, if I can produce a nice image, something really interesting to show off their billboard, maybe I might get a bit of, kudos from Netflix and they may push my content out there. Still waiting for the call from them, but it's always worth a try. It's just a cheeky way to get your work noticed as well. Don't be afraid to share your work. Be proud of your work that you do it as well, because that's really, really cool. If you can show you're proud of something that's hard to get, because I've got two people walking through this, and this is also a thing you'll look for in my shots, is an open gait. An open gait is a stride in their step. Both of these people have got a stride in their step, and that makes the shot as well. Plus, their faces are blending into another face. There is an element of luck in this, and I've managed to get it that day. And sometimes you just get it. So, how did I do it? Right. This is how my mind works. So I'm walking along Brick Lane, just outside Brick Lane. I'm walking along the main street. There's a main road just behind me, and I walk along and I see industrial, sort of slightly torn billboard. I think that's fantastic. Now I can't stand back any further because it would have been nice to get a bit wider. It would have been nice to get the actual foot of the person closest to camera. I can't step back any further because I'll get run over. So I'm with a 15mm lens, shooting on a micro four thirds camera, which is equivalent to 30mm. I crop everything I can in camera. So I'm holding it right up to my chest as much as I can so I can get as much in camera because I need to get the whole billboard in camera. I look down the street and I see two people coming along and I'm shooting at chest level. You'll notice how low it is. I might even be at waist level. If I shoot at eye level, people know I'm taking a photo and they will walk around me. So if I shoot it at hip level or chest level, I can get away with a lot more. I'm not so out there. I can even trigger from my phone if I really want to and put it on the floor and do it that way, but I didn't this time. So that makes you, blend into the background, so to speak. So these two came along. I think I took about 3 shots to get this. Again, that element of luck. They came along, went through. They're not recognizable, so I don't need a model release for them. Now, for the people there, I've made this picture my own as well, but I would go through Netflix and say, look, is there any way we can use this and stuff like that, because they're much bigger than I am, and it's also that courtesy element as well. So just put a polite head on and things will work for you, and that's the simple way of doing it. So the next thing in street photography that will make or break your photo is timing. Timing, if you can get timing right, your images, again, so we've gone up about 3 levels so far. I keep saying go up a level, but it's true. If you add these elements into your street photography, they will literally improve and improve. But practice is the biggest thing that will help with your improvement. So timing. What do I mean by timing? Well, we looked at the previous one. I timed it that the people were coming through, and I got that right. When you have moving subjects coming through your image, you need to time it well, especially when they're on a bike. Sometimes I'll actually pre-focus. In this instance, I did, because there was a reflection of the water coming up and hitting the roof. This is on the way to Camden, and I saw a bike come along. So I pre-focused on the barrier. So I thought, right, I wanted to nail that shot. And the bonus of shooting with a camera is you push that shutter and the photo's taken. If we're shooting on a phone, it's not as instant. There is a slight delay. Everything's getting better, don't get me wrong, but I feel the comfort in the camera, and when you take that photo, you know you've nailed it straight away. You're not taking a million photos with your thumb or however you like to shoot it on a phone. You're taking it with a camera, and you know you've nailed it. You know that feeling, you've got it. So this came through, and again, unrecognizable, great. I can use that in any way. That can be up on someone's wall if they want it, and it prints out beautifully because there's a really high contrast going on with the blacks and the whites, and it's going through all the grays as well. The next image, I'm still looking for this guy, and this is where my moral compass steps in. So this was shot just off Brick Lane, and as you can tell, I shot a lot around there. I literally took one photo with a drag shutter, and then for some reason I just adjusted it. And this guy walked through, and I took the shot, looked down, and went, wow. Well, it exactly wasn't what I said, but that's the edited version. I went, wow. There's so many things going on here. He's got the gait, he's got the stride. It was about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, so he's either coming back from prayer or coming back from lunch. I love the fact he's got Red Bull, he's having a cigarette, and he's oblivious what's going on and is going about his day. So many people have interpreted this image differently. Some people have said you shouldn't publish it. It was published in the Telegraph, actually, as an editorial image because it did actually win it was runner-up in Street Photographer of the Year. But I looked down, I looked up, and he was gone. It was the most bizarre thing, and I've spent years looking for him. I started about just before lockdown. So I've spent days actually walking around the area, going to mosques, going to shops, looking for him. And I don't know, was he a ghost or not? But he gave me the most incredibly strong, most talked about image that I've ever taken. And by talked about it, it creates a discussion, which I like that about photography. I love when photography can create a discussion. But whoever you are, my friend, I would love to meet you one day. So there we are. And I'm sure we all have a photo in there. So that we have that we can't use. So I've been asked to sell this for commercial use, and I've refused because I haven't got his model release. I haven't got his permission, and I believe I owe that to him to have his permission. Yes, it can be used for editorial purposes, but I have control over that usage. So it can't be used in any derogatory manner or anything like that. So that's the difference. Your moral compass allows what you want to do. I could have got money for commercial use, but I didn't think it was fair on him because I believe he should have a bit of a reward for that as well. That's just the way I think. So we walk on again. We talk about the strides and we talk about timing. We talk about waiting and waiting for people to walk through. This was shot in Romford again, and I waited so long for someone to walk through. I don't normally wait around, and I was just trying a different technique. I wanted to get a really strong silhouette. Didn't quite work, but I got the open gate. The pipe in the background is a little bit distracting for me, but I've never actually shown this photo to anyone, so you're the first to see it. But I don't think it's particularly strong. It could be better, but just timing, and by timing, getting that open gate makes an image stronger, and being in the right place at the right time. So when I was shooting in Cardiff, those of you who live in Wales will know that this shop has just closed down. It was House of Fraser. James Howe's been there for, well, since forever, pretty much, and it just closed down. And I shot this last year, and then obviously it was closing down. So bang, it's a fantastic editorial image. But I've got the look of someone looking somber walking in. I can't use it commercially because I couldn't get his model release. He disappeared as well. Going on to the next one, timing. This is Mark, and I spoke to him, and he's an incredible guy. He's just outside one of the tube stations, and this was the other contrasted Christmas image. So we had the guy in the Harrods shop, and now we've got Mark. So I went and spoke to him and said, look, can I take your photo? And he was like, oh, what's it for? And I said, look, I've taken a photo of Harrods. I'm doing a contrasted Christmas shirts. He showed him as well. And he was like, yeah, that's cool. I've just been taken advantage of. And I said, look, I'll give you some money for food and stuff if you like, and he was incredibly grateful. Excuse me. I'll just take a quick drink. Excuse me. So Mark was incredibly grateful that I had taken the time to speak to him, find out about him, find out about his stories, and not just stand there, take his photo and walk off, which is an incredibly rude and ignorant thing to do. So we had this conversation about where he's going to be, and he gave me the details of the hostel we were staying in, so he could actually, so I could get in touch and send a copy through. So I really hope he's in a better place now, and you do meet some wonderful people out there who are just a bit less fortunate than us, and I believe really in the UK that we live in that we shouldn't really have homeless people. It's just incredibly sad. And this was quite a sad moment. So we were out. This was the last shot we took for when we were shooting Street, a Portrait of an Artist, which you can obviously pop over to the YouTube channel and watch. We've been shooting out all day, and we're about to get on the tube to go back to Matt's or go to the pub, have a few beers. We saw this couple, and we had a chat to them. Really sad story. They just come out of rehab, and then so gone through the whole rehab thing, and now they're on the streets because they've got nowhere to live. So I had a chat, got down. I said, look, can you look over there? And as we did, this couple walked through arm in arm. You couldn't have scripted it. It wasn't set up. A lot of people think it was staged, but it wasn't. And I took the photo, and the battery ran out because I've been photographing all day. And the ironic thing was I felt so bad because I could not show this lovely couple the photo I'd taken of them at that point. But I was fortunate enough to be able to go home, charge the battery up, and then look at it. So just think about the places we're in at the moment. We're very lucky at some point, but also street photography can be a strength that you can use to actually show off, what you can do. So I'm going to try and be clever, and I want to jump over and actually just change a screen because I want to show you the Calibrite Profiler. So the Calibrite Profiler, there we are, look at that. Everything's working. It's a new piece of software that's come out. We used to have a different profile, but this is just so user-friendly. Now, as you can see here, I've got my monitor on here, and it'll normally show all my different monitors. So I'm going to quickly take you through the steps on what to do. So if I hit this button, hopefully you're going to see my screen. So if I show screen, no, it's showing the wrong screen because I want it to show that screen. There we go. Right, okay, Ross is cooking. Excellent. So if we go next, you're going to, if I go back, I'll just stop showing my screen. And I want to go to that. Okay, so as you can see at the moment, I've got my color checker. Color checker has got the lens there, which will help calibrate it. It's got a protective screen over as well, which is ambient. You basically click that off. Okay, it's got a little weight which hangs over the back. And when I start clicking through everything, you'll see what's going to happen. And it's so simple to do. Now you can see the three monitors. So I've got two monitors. I've got a ATEM Mini here, which is controlling. It's a switcher, so it's like a virtual monitor, if you like. And so these are my two main monitors. Now, if you're unsure what panel type it is, you can just click on the display type, and then that should take you through to your monitors, or you can just have a look at your monitor, and that'll tell you what it is. So I'm just going to jump into the main screen now. And you'll see coming up, if I click through next. So I want to start the measurement. It's saying, it's actually recognizing the device I've got, which is fantastic. And then it'll ask, do you want to do brightness? Yeah, let's do that. And then it's going to show me how to position calibrator. So it's actually telling me to put it smack in the middle. Now, also a little tip, make sure you tilt your screen so it lies flat. They need to lie flat to get an accurate calibration as well. And it's even telling you to do that on the right-hand side. It's so simple. It's worth following what to do. And a lot of people are scared of calibration because they think it's really complicated. It's not. And this helps your prints as well. So let's sort of dive into it a bit more. I think I've just watched screen. I think I've lost my main screen. Okay, I'm just, there we are. Apologies for that. There's my main screen. Okay. So if we just click through on next, leave calibrator in the middle. Now I'm not going to go through the whole calibration. And if those with keen eyes, you can see on the left-hand side, my levels. So if I can actually click yes, and it would go through all 118 images if I started our patches now, because it'll go right through and it'll calibrate every single one of those colors, and it'll create an individual profile for each monitor. And I basically do this every couple of weeks. So it's that simple. Make yourself a coffee, job done. It doesn't even take that long. So I'm going to close that down now because we don't need that anymore. I'm going to go back to my lovely face there. And I'm going to stop showing the screen so you can see my face. Hello. And then we're going to go back to our slideshow presentation. So many things to click and push. And hopefully you should have me back now. Here we are, back. Well, that wasn't tricky. So that's how easy it is to calibrate your screen. So make sure you keep your eyes peeled for the discount code at the end as well. Now, one of my favorite places to go and photograph is planes, trains, and I've also put layers in there as well. And I'll explain that as I've sort of touched on earlier on. Why? But planes and trains or tube stations or anything that's gritty and dirty and got lots of people really floats my boat with street photography. So wherever you are, even by the seaside, if you wanted to go all Martin Parr, you can sort of have that effect as well. Now, I live near a place called Tembe, so when I saw this opportunity, I thought, I've got to try and get a photo. Please, someone walk through for me, please. Now, I clocked him walking through the carriage. I'd actually just got off this train. All I'm thinking was, please keep the doors open, don't shut. Hence that luck elements come in. He walks through, he's got a coffee in his hand. His mate's coming at 1,000,000 miles an hour behind him as well. And then he's got the gate on. So we're absolutely laughing with that as well. Let's have a look. Oh, pardon me. I'm just showing you the wrong screen. And hopefully, there we are. Sorry, apologies there. Thank you, Kate. So we're looking at, we were looking at previously, I'll go back because you saw some of that slide. There we are. Right. Okay, we're back into it. Right, color. Right, the guy's coming through with his coffee. I live just outside Tembe, and this guy's coming through with a nice strong gate on. Loved it, nailed it, got the timing right, got those elements. I saw the image, saw the photo, took the photo, got my timing right, had key elements in it which make it interesting, got my shutter drag going on, so I've got my style applied to it, and that's all working fine. And then I thought, do you know what? What is it going to look like in black and white? Now, the jury's out on this, and there's also elements I'm starting to notice more. I'm starting to get pickier in my editing. I said I don't spend a lot of time, but this one I have spent the most time on of all my images. There's things I started cleaning up. I've started cropping in, getting rid of, say, signage, of cropping in, getting rid of mirrors. But I've kind of found the more you leave it, the better it looks. The less you fiddle with it, the better. So this is again one of my images, which I absolutely love. Down in the tube station, sort of rush hour. How was it done? How did I do it? Right. This is simple. So this is a completely different perspective to say the Netflix photo, but you need to sort of, similar mindset. So we want to drag shutter. We don't really want to recognize anyone, so we're shooting them from behind. So that it gets that factor in. We want the sense of movement. We want the sense of rush and urgency. So we're going to drag that shutter. That applies to that as well. We want the sense of leading lines. We've got those with the floor and the tiling leading into that. And then you get people who just happen to walk through the right thing, right time, right place. It's like the Truman Show. Everyone looks like an extra walking through. The way the guy swung his arm open and you can see the person down there. The central line sign just off his shoulder. The girl on the left walking through and she's got a nice big stride on. And the girl further down and the person on the right walking through. There's so many elements going on in here. And hence I've actually got this framed and up on my wall behind me. I just love this image so much. It's never sort of won me an award or anything like that, but sometimes your most favorite images the ones that you personally love yourself. I did a 5-minute edit on this, and then all I did, I put it into Lightroom. I used my desaturation preset that I use, tweaked it slightly a little bit, and that was all. Left it, printed it, framed it. It's on the wall, and I'm extremely proud of it. And also make sure you sign your work as well, because that's another great tool. On the front of signing as well, don't sign your work with the signature, say you would sign on the back of your credit card. Have your artistic signature that you will sign with, because there's some people will take that and abuse it. If you just sign as you would with your normal signature, there's a few behind me which you can probably see the signature on. Sign it differently for obvious reasons. So that's all how it was shot, and you can sort of see there's like ghosting coming in with the movement, and why I drag that shot. It just gives privacy, and it just adds excitement to the image. It makes it more dynamic. So carrying on to a different country, but on the tube again, in Japan. Now, I'll let you into a little secret on this one. This was staged. That's my friend in front of me with his mobile phone closest to camera. So I just was like, he had his phone out anyway. And I said, look, mate, can you just hold it there? I'm just like, I could see that layer. If I create that layer between myself and the subjects further down, I'm going to give depth. If that wasn't there, it wouldn't be as exciting. So it's sort of framed by him as well, and the other person next to him. And then I've got all the people on their phones, and that's normal. You would think that's normal on the tube until you take a look at the next person. So this was at Green Park tube station, and one thing I love about this, no one is on their phone. Not one. No one's got earbuds or anything like that. They're just sitting there thinking what a day they've had, or where they're going, what they're going to do next. And I love that. I think that's incredibly powerful. It's something you don't see very often these days at all. So this is also a very rare photo. How often do you see a tube station empty? And this wasn't taken at stupid o'clock in the morning either. This was just taken when we were actually filming the film Street Portrait of an Artist, and there's nothing special going on. Just took the photo and moved on. And sometimes you just need to do that. Take the photo, get out of there, move on. And this photo, obviously, that was used in the header and for the advertising. Again, I'm dragging the shutter. I'm staying static. There's other ways you can do. I could have panned with the train and everything else would have been blurred, but you would have lost the leading lines going into it. So the leading lines are lines that come in from the corners and they bring you in to the photo, and they bring the curve in from the roof, and the tiles on the floor also draw you towards the train. There's little things that can be quite subliminal, and they will draw you into an image. Now you can create an image and make it into wall art, which we've typed. Also, this one I take Center Parks in for obvious reasons. Going back to what I did with Netflix, it's worth a go. It's showing their advertising in the tube in London, but from a different perspective. So there's various ways that you can help with people's marketing and help improve your own marketing by sort of piggybacking with them as well. Then you go out and you photograph with a good friend, and you just go out and have a laugh, and you're wandering around photographing all sort of different types of things. And this is my good mate Scott Johnson, and then you send in the personalized, slightly edited version of what should be Shepherd's Bush Market. His bed's a hell of a lot bigger than it is here, I've got to admit now, but this was the result of a good day shooting. And you go out with your friends and you photograph. Some people like to go and photograph by their own. Normally my street photography, I photograph on my own, but when you go out with friends, you see different things. He will see something and then photograph it, and you'll look at it and you go, wow. You may take something and you'll photograph it and they'll look at it and, oh wow. And it's just how people and creative people and photographers, filmmakers, whatever, they sort of look at something and think, my God, that's incredible. How do I actually achieve something like that? And you talk to each other, you bounce off each other, and that's how you get to that endpoint. And we learn every day on how to shoot differently by going out and practicing. It's so incredibly simple. So I thought next I'm going to talk to you about my editing principles. This is just something I sort of stand by. So my ISO, sort of my techniques, my approach. As I said, I spend as little time as possible. I don't really retouch. And when I say I don't retouch, I don't go in and do like fine dust removal and stuff like that. Unless it's going to go into a competition, it has to be absolutely perfect. I'm not going to do skin retouching on people as well. That doesn't happen. But I do want to have color control. Hence, we're calibrating our screens, and we're getting the perfect prints coming off that. And that's, you want to be looking on your screen on what you're shooting, and that's why we're calibrating, and that's why we're managing our color. Cropping is one of the most powerful tools and quickest tools that you'll actually use to sort of edit your work. Is your work sellable? Sometimes you'll look at your work and go, yeah, that's sellable. I love it. But that's because you're emotionally attached to that image. That image behind me, is that sellable? I don't know. No one's bought it yet. Maybe one day they will. I think it's sellable, but sometimes we get so emotionally attached to images, we get frustrated because they don't sell. So another way is to gift images to your friends, but that's a classic photographer's thing. We give too much of our work away. So protect your work, take pride in your work, and be proud of your work. Print it, print it, print it. Don't let it sit on a computer and look at it that way, or sit on a phone, or show your friend's phone. Show them something physical that they can look at, hold, and they will appreciate your work so much more. It's got that tangible value if you're going to actually hand someone a print that they can hold and appreciate. Revisit old images as well, because if you revisit old images, my goodness, you will find so much more that you're really, really proud of. I do it. I've revisited images from years ago, and I actually look at them and think, wow, that's absolutely incredible. How did I miss that? But then at the same time, I will look at images that I've just shot and I can't stand them. But then I'll go back to them in a couple of months and go, I actually like that. And you'll treat them differently, whether you treat them as black and white, a cinema look, desaturated, whatever your style is going to be. You may want to warm it up, cool it down, use the power of color, use the power of color temperature as well. Make sure you watch that clip that I referenced to with Lawrence Sher, and you will just develop your processing, develop your mindset. You will look at films that you watch now differently. You will look at scenes that you walk around, even if you're just sitting on the bench in a square somewhere or on the beach or whatever. You will look at the light differently, how the light falls, how that light is going to fall tomorrow when you want to go out and photograph it. Doesn't mean you have to walk around with a camera around your neck 24/7, but if you get your favorite location, try and photograph that every day, because that will change. It will never, ever, ever be the same. Different people, different atmosphere, different weather, all these elements change your photographs in the most positive way as well, because you get to experience them. And I think that's super cool. So when you're out and about, make sure you say very courteous, be courteous, but stay super, super safe. So thank you for listening. We can carry on for a bit if you've got questions you want to ask, which I'm just going to jump into now. And I'm going to switch the cameras on and ask. And also, we have also got a chat, which is going to go into the chat group, which is a discount code with Park Cameras. So you'll be able to check out the chat. Make sure you get that, because then you can get 15% off Calibrite at Park Cameras until the 26th of April. And there's a link there which you can click on as well. So make sure you click on that. I'm quickly going to bring my lovely mug into the things so you can say hello to me. Hello. So yeah, thanks guys. Right, I'm going to dive into some absolutely amazing questions which we've got here. So first, Jess, do you have any tips on asking people to pose for photographs? Tips on approaching them? Yes, I do. The best thing you can say, Jess, is hello to someone. Approach someone and literally engage in a conversation. If you approach someone, hi, how are you going? Don't just run up and go, oh, can I take your photo, and ram the camera in the face. Let them know what you're doing, because you want them to be part of what you're doing. And if you can do that, then they'll become interested in what you're doing. So you're creating a story about them. Share the imagery with them, get their details, email them a copy. They'll love it. Show them how proud you are of the photo you've taken. Sometimes you may get asked to delete that photo. Just delete it. It's not worth the hassle and pain and stress that they may cause someone. So just respect other people and their thoughts. I hope that sort of answered that for you. Alan is asked, is handheld different on slow shutter speed without a tripod? Cameras are so good these days. So the cameras I'm using, they've got in-body stabilization, and well, the lens I use hasn't got stabilization on it, but it's got 5 stops worth of stabilization in it. So I don't need a tripod. And when I do hold the camera, I will hold it against my body. So it's firm. I'm not holding it at arm's length. If I'm holding it at arm's length, it's going to get, a bit shaky. If I'm holding it back here, I've got a bit of purchase there, and it's going to be a much better result. So I don't tend to carry a tripod out, because I don't want to look like a photographer. You're going to draw attention to yourself as well, which you don't want. Jose is asked, what do I mean by editorial use of photographs? Something that's going to be used in the press or in magazines, not for commercial use. So something that is not going to be used to promote a company or product. That's newsworthy, and that's what I mean by that. So good question again. Alan has asked the model release names again, please. So Image Release was one of the apps, and the other app was called Easy Release. So go and search for those in your app. I use an iPhone, so they're both there. And Alan has also asked, I mentioned wanting to give Brick Lane character a reward if I found him. What would I mean by this? Well, that would be something that the subject and I would come to, whether it's a monetary value or print value, something that he is happy with. So it's not a one-sided conversation. It'll be a conversation that that person and I would have, and that's something that he's happy with. And once we reach that, then that would be the agreement. So it's, again, going back to that courtesy point that we need to talk about. So yeah, it's incredibly important to me that the subject and the photo are happy with that being used. Nishi's asked this, says, Ross, model releases take time to fill out forms on the phone. They don't. They take a little bit of time, but if you want to sell that image, you can use a paper image, but I don't like carrying bits of paper around. But if that's your preference, by all means, do that. You can print out model releases. I don't use a paper version. I just use the one on the phone, and it's worked incredibly well, because I'm having a discussion with a person about the photograph we've just taken. And it's also a good point of, you can actually you can tell them what you're talking about, show them on the model release. They can get everything they want, they're happy with, take the photo, and then you're on your way. So they're not waiting around afterwards. And that's the way I tend to work. Hannah's just asked, do I ever get anyone from abuse in the street that I'm taking photos of, or asked to move by police? I've never been asked to move by police, but I have had one incident, and I'll tell you quickly about it. So I was in a market, and now remember, a market is private property. So I'd gone to the manager's office to ask if I could photograph in the market, and they went, yes, no problem at all. Go and see this gentleman. He's on our store in the market, and he will be happy to show you around. So I did that, and I went up to their stall, and he was talking to a couple of people, and his assistant was there, and I was talking away to her and just saying what was going on. And the light coming into the market was amazing. And he was sort of framed by these two people he was talking to. Oh, this is a great opportunity. So I just got my camera up down low and I took 2 or 3 photos. And he clocked what I did and he went, "What are you doing?" And this is the incredibly edited version. So, "What are you doing? How do you take my photo without my permission?" And I went, "I'm incredibly sorry. I'm incredibly sorry." And he said, "Right, delete those now." And I went, and I looked at them and they were absolutely beautiful images. And I deleted them right in front of him. But I thought, do you know what? This guy's had an experience and I was in the wrong. I should have waited and asked. So I deleted them and I said, "Look, I'm really sorry about that. That's not normally my take on things." And I said, "Have you had a bad experience lately with a photographer?" And he said, "Yes, I had someone in yesterday running around, upsetting the stall holders and stuff." And I explained I'd just been over, spoken to management, they could come over and we could do something. And he said, and I spoke to him about 40 minutes. And after that 40 minutes, he said, "Look, I know it's a really busy day today, but the next time you come here, come up and see me, and I will take you around every individual stall holder, introduce you, make sure you get the best photos possible, because I know what you're about and I know your intentions weren't bad. You just saw the moment and chose the wrong moment." I said, "Absolutely." So that's when honesty comes into it as well. So Hannah, that's the one and only story where I didn't get abused from him. I was in the wrong. And that was a few years ago, and you learn from your lessons, that's for sure. But I needed to change my pants after that. And Alton, the Lumix models I mentioned is a GX9. I also have a strap attached to it for security reasons as well. There's full frame models you can use, like an S5, it's Mark II, GH6 you could use. That is smaller. There's an S1R I wouldn't take out. But Richard's asked a really good one. Do you take several shots, frames per second, in order to open at the gate in pedestrians? Absolutely. Sometimes you get it first shot and I just move on because I've got the shot I want. But sometimes, like I think it took about three or four shots to get the Netflix one. Sometimes you get lucky and you'll get it the first shot. Ian has asked, do I always pre-focus? No, I don't always pre-focus. It depends what I'm shooting. If something's moving fast, sometimes I will track. Every photo I take it's quite a different method, but you just get into a habit of the way you work, and it tends to work with people as well. So if you can actually sort of identify what focus mode you need to use before the subject gets to you, that's going to help you out. So thanks, guys. Thanks so much for listening tonight. Don't forget the discount code with Calibrite at Park Cameras. You'll get 15% off until the 26th of April. Scroll up into the chat and you'll be able to see it. I'm not going to mention it because you've got to have been on live to see it. Again, thank you so much, everyone. I'm glad you enjoyed the show, and I hope to see you again soon. Here's my details. If you want to follow me on social and everything, by the way, you can tweet me. You can Instagram follow me, Facebook, Philly Boots, and don't forget to listen to the podcast, Talking Shot. Thank you once again. Have a lovely evening.